on this Ram 2500 HD with the 6. For gas engine, P0521 is an engine oil pressure sensor performance fault. In plain terms, the PCM may be seeing oil pressure information that does not line up with what it expects. The MIL may come on, and the fault area can be something basic like oil level or oil condition, an actual engine oil pressure or mechanical concern, an issue in the sensor supply, signal, or ground circuit, the engine oil pressure sensor itself, or possibly the PCM. Start with the basic system checks before getting into the circuit tests. For the monitor gate, this diagnostic runs with the engine running and engine speed above 1150 RPM. The fault sets when engine oil pressure is below the calibrated specification for more than 8 seconds with engine speed at or above 1150 RPM. The PCM supplies the engine oil pressure sensor with a 5-volt supply, and depending on the PCM hardware, the signal circuit can use a pull-up at 5.0 volts or a pull-down at 0.0 volts. Keep that system behavior in mind, but the diagnostic path starts by proving whether the code is current and repeatable. First, use the scan tool to read codes in all electronic control units and record the data. If other codes are present, check what they mean first instead of treating this one in isolation. Save the vehicle scan report and the recorded data, then erase the codes. Turn the ignition off for a minimum of 0 seconds, turn it back on, and operate the vehicle under the same type of conditions that set the fault. Then read codes again. If P0521 does not return, handle it as an intermittent condition. If it does return, move into the oil and mechanical checks. Before chasing wires, make sure the oil side of the engine is not causing the fault. Verify the engine oil is at the proper level. Review the customer's oil change history. Confirm the correct service intervals, and make sure the proper oil viscosity is being used. Also consider low oil pressure below specification, engine mechanical tolerances out of specification, deteriorated or dirty oil, and oil contamination such as coolant or fuel. If any of those conditions are present, repair what is found and then verify the repair. If none are present, continue with circuit testing. Now go after the signal circuit. Turn the ignition off, disconnect the engine oil pressure sensor harness connector, and disconnect the PCM harness connector. Do not probe the PCM harness connectors. That can damage the terminals and create a poor terminal-to-pin connection. Use the GPEC Diagnostic Adapter, GPEC Diagnostic 10436, at the proper PCM connector. Measure resistance of the signal circuit between the engine oil pressure sensor connector and the PCM connector. The resistance should be below 3.0 ohms. Remember, the GPEC Diagnostic Adapter can add up to 1.5 ohms of resistance to the circuit. If the signal circuit is not below 3.0 ohms, repair the open or high resistance in that signal circuit and verify the repair. If it passes, go to the supply circuit. Next, isolate the 5-volt supply circuit. With the ignition off, the engine oil pressure sensor connector disconnected, and the PCM connector disconnected, keep using the GPEC Diagnostic Adapter rather than probing the PCM connector directly. Measure resistance of the supply circuit between the engine oil pressure sensor connector and the PCM connector. The pass point is below 3.0 ohms. If it is not below 3.0 ohms, repair the supply circuit for an open or high resistance and verify the repair. If it passes, continue to the sensor ground circuit. Now check the sensor ground circuit the same way. Ignition off, sensor connector disconnected, PCM connector disconnected, and the GPEC Diagnostic Adapter installed. Measure resistance of the ground circuit between the engine oil pressure sensor connector and the PCM connector. It should be below 3.0 ohms. If it is not, repair the ground circuit for an open or high resistance and verify the repair. If the signal, supply, and ground circuits all pass, the path moves to the engine oil pressure sensor. At this point, the diagnostic path supports replacing the engine oil pressure sensor. Turn the ignition off, replace the component and reconnect the component and ECU harness connectors. Turn the ignition on and erase the codes. Then turn the ignition off for a minimum of 10.0 seconds, turn it back on and operate the vehicle under the conditions that set the fault. Read codes again. If P0521 does not return, the faulty sensor repaired the fault, and you still finish by verifying the repair. If it does return, continue to connector and PCM connection checks. Before condemning the PCM, perform any applicable service bulletins, then inspect the related connections. Disconnect the PCM harness connectors, any related inline connectors if equipped, and the related component connectors. Look closely for connector installation problems, damaged locks, corrosion, signs of water intrusion, whether seal damage if equipped, bent terminals, overheated or discolored terminals from poor connection, and terminals pushed back in the connector cavity. Check for spread terminals and verify proper terminal tension. Repair anything you find. Then reconnect the PCM connectors, inline connectors and component connectors, making sure they are fully seated and the locks are fully engaged. Erase the codes, test drive or operate the vehicle under the monitor conditions, and read codes again. If the code stays gone after those connection repairs, the wiring or poor connection problem has been repaired. If P0521 returns after the oil checks, circuit tests, sensor replacement and connector checks have all been completed in order, the diagnostic path supports replacing and programming the PCM. Either way, keep verification separate from the testing. Clear the codes, operate the vehicle under the required conditions, and confirm the code stays gone. The takeaway on P0521 is simple. Prove the code is repeatable, rule out oil and mechanical causes first, then test the signal, 5-volt supply and ground circuits before moving to the sensor and PCM side of the diagnosis. For more diagnostic training, visit stepdiagnostics.com.